right, I have foolishly accepted Bill Hamlin's invitation to discuss the 666, the number of the beast, for my 666th video. kind of a fun little match, and yet there is really some fascinating information on just this feature in the Apocalypse, the book of Revelation. In Margaret Barker's book, The Revelation of Jesus Christ, she wrote this. This is from T&T Clark for the year 2000. Her analysis, her entire structuring and contexting of the book of Revelation is really interesting. It's certainly controversial. I don't know if it's going to be accepted by mainstream scholarship or not, but her analysis of this beast idea is worth at least taking a look at. And I think she has some very interesting information that is certainly vital. On page 232 of her text, the true king in Jerusalem is a recurring theme in the Gospels. And Herod reacted violently when he found out there was going to be a king of the Jews born, you know. He wiped out all the children, so on and so forth. Jesus warned about Caesar worship when he replied to the question about Roman taxes. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, render unto God that which is God's. And her analysis of this is real interesting because the conflict between the kings of the earth setting themselves up against the king of heaven was an understood context by Jesus, she says. And the idea is, do not worship Caesar. The story is told with emphasis on the image of Caesar on the coin when he was given that coin. And this must be one of the elements in the image of the beast. The image of the beast on this coin would have been Caesar. There are various elements to the beast, and she is exploring the various elements of this beast. He warned that Daniel's prophecy would be fulfilled. There would be an abomination in the temple, and the people of Judea should escape to the hills. That's in Mark 13:14. It's pointless to try to find one ruler who fulfilled everything that depicted the antitype of the Messiah in the New Testament, especially the Revelation. In the final form of the book of Revelation, the beast is identified as Nero. And the mortal wound in the head of the beast had fulfillment in the manner of Nero's death in 68 of the Common Era, when he committed suicide after discovering a plot against him, according to Josephus in the War of the Jews, 4 and then 493. Immediately in 69 of the Common Era, a year later, there arose rumors that he had fled to the east and he would return, and hence the Apocalypse talks about the resurrection of the beast and the return of the beast. Most references to the beast concentrate on his mark. Another way to identify this beast was this number, the 666, being the number of a man. She points out something interesting here. The gematria of the word Nero Caesar, spelled in Hebrew letters, spells to be exactly 666. This spelling of the name is confirmed by an Aramaic document found at Murabat, dated the 2nd year of the Emperor Nero. The identification of the beast of Nero has been a commonplace among scholars since it was first suggested over a century ago. And she says at the end of the 2nd century of the Common Era, there were some versions of the book of Revelation that instead of having the number 666, had the number 616. And I think that's kind of interesting. And this could represent a Latin form of Nero Caesar, the final N of the Greek form being dropped, and so the gematria being reduced by 50 would be 616 instead of 666. So there's a perfectly rational explanation for this. Or it could be conventional gematria with the Greek letters of the name Gaius Caesar, and the beast would have been Caligula. So you see how they played around with these things. And we, of course, in our day and age, everyone and their dog has been identified with 666. I mean, I'm sure with a little bit of ingenuity, you could make Barack Obama the 666. My personal preference would have been George W. Bush being the 666. Anybody could be 666. I'm sure Saddam Hussein was equated with 666 by some ingenious manipulation of letters and numbers. This is not to disparage prophecy, and this is not to disparage gematria in the Jewish mystical tradition. It's just that we have historical precedent for demonstrating that the context of the book of Revelation was the 1st century after Christ. And it is in that context that the beast would be found, or if not earlier. And she mentions several options. The beast had taken many forms before it was identified as Nero. The evil reign of Antiochus Epiphanes in 175 to 163 BCE was certainly an option for being the beast. And this is seen from Daniel chapter 7, verses 19 through 27. And this is explained as being the time that the 4th and last beast had come. So that kind of makes sense. She says much of what is said about the beast in Revelation could have been said of Antiochus. Another option would have been Ptolemy IV Philopator, who lived 225 to 205 BC, whose story is told in 3rd Maccabees, chapters 1 and 2. Or the beast could have been Pompey, and he had been involved with Jerusalem in 63 BC as one of the 2 rivals of the high priesthood asked him to intervene. This could have been the red dragon summoning the beast from the sea. Or the beast could have been the Emperor Caligula, who lived 37 to 41 of the Common Era. He had a serious illness, which really shocked people that he recovered from. And he insisted on being worshipped as a god, and so on and so forth. I believe what Barker is demonstrating in her book, and this is a fantastic read, this Revelation of Jesus Christ. This is one of the most detailed, impressive analysis of the book of Revelation that I've ever read. Not that I've made an enormous study of the book of Revelation, but this theme of identifying the beast would have been very popular, would have been very important for the early Christians in their day because of the prophecies of Jesus warning the Jews that when this beast arises, you better head for the hills. You're in trouble. And see, this is the Qumran community thing. Now, Robert Eisenman, in his book of James and his story of the Dead Sea Scrolls being New Testament documents, he has some really interesting analysis on the destruction of Jerusalem in the when Titus came down and massacred out Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and scattered them all over the broad face of the earth. This isn't to say that this couldn't be used as a double fulfillment of prophecy. I know some LDS interpret some prophecies as having a dual nature. Well, maybe this is one of those. I personally just don't know. I personally don't make a big deal about it because so many people take so many things out of context with this book of Revelation that you really don't know what it really means. Margaret Barker puts the context of the book of Revelation into its own day as a prophecy shortly to be fulfilled for the Jews to understand and the early Christians to understand. Because to them, Jesus' return was going to occur suddenly. They were preparing for the last days. And for them, they were living in the last days. Hugh Nibley brought that out real strong. For them, it was the last days because they actually were destroyed as a group and tens of thousands of individuals, as Josephus recorded. That was their end time. Their entire temple was destroyed, their religion was wiped out, and they were scattered on the 4 winds of the earth, man. So this theme of 666, the mark of the beast, you hear about it in supermarkets, it's the little doodah that they run the barcode over and all that. I truly don't know. I'm not going to disparage anything at this point, but quite frankly, there's much more important things to do than worry about this prophecy of the beast, because it is a type of an antichrist. So what we need to do in order to not fall in line with the beast is don't do anything antichrist. We need to live the Christian life. We need to fulfill our personal obligations with our religions. And then it doesn't matter if the beast does arise again. He has arisen several times, and there are several different kinds of beasts. That could happen here again in what we call the last days. This is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you see. So everyone is living in the last days, so you need to live righteously so that you're not overtaken by the beast.